Joining us on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line is a man who's at the cross-section of everything going on in the world of college athletics. He is the commissioner of the SEC. Greg Sankey back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Commissioner?
I'm doing well, Rich. Thanks. Good to be with you.
Anything going on with you these days? Anything anything on your plate?
Stopped. I showed up at a place that I thought would be nice and relaxing for July 4th weekend, and the world flipped on us a little bit. But hey, that's the way it rolls.
I know that is the way it rolls. So there is a couple of news items out there I'd love to get your reaction to. And the first one is the piece that Pete Thamel of the Worldwide Leader, ESPN, wrote that the presidents and chancellors who make up the College Football Playoff Board of Managers talked briefly Monday about moving major college football out of the NCAA and under a governance structure of the College Football Playoff. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, well, and I can speak from my perspective. That's been a notion that's bubbled for a while. The College Football Playoff itself is simply a set of agreements to conduct a postseason to determine a national champion. Very small structure, if you will, very specific task. And as people have observed and opined and commented on the future of the NCAA kind of globally, I think it's responsible to think ahead. That doesn't mean something's imminent, but I think it's responsible to think ahead about what structures may be needed in the future to support effective intercollegiate athletics, and in this case, football being at the center of that conversation.
Well, what would that look? I mean, what part of the conversations that you've been involved in would cause us to give us a little bit more shape to what you're thinking about?
Well, I'm actually not one who advocates for this football-only structure, so okay. I guess I should have said that up front. I think it's enormously problematic to think about a football structure and then look at really high-level young people in men's basketball, women's basketball, and my league baseball players who go first in the major league draft, track and field athletes who we've had any number of young women kind of go one and done in track and field and then win Olympic gold medals like the same year. So I think it's going to be problematic to say, well, we can do certain things and function in certain ways in football, but those of you who we value highly, we can't do this because we're in this other system. So fundamentally, I'm not an advocate for that structure. I think we have a responsibility to try to reshape the NCAA to make it a better functioning body. Whether that can be achieved or not, I don't know. And on the backside of answering that question, you then have to think forward and what the structure is, what the timing, what the possibilities are. I'm not in the middle of that conversation. I sit and dream about it a little bit, but that's the extent of the thought on my end.
Well, let me just chop it up a little bit more with you, Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner here on the Rich Eisen Show, is that just when you look at what is occurring in the world of major college football with the NIL world in its second year, still in its infancy, not even toddling around. I mean, we're still crawling here right now with the NIL world, but it's going much faster than anybody thought. That with that, transfer portals and things of that nature, that parceling out a smaller group of schools for football under which a certain much more manageable structure that you can all agree on for guardrails on those fronts, that kind of makes sense because it is so unwieldy to do it for all the member schools that you currently have. What are your thoughts on that theory?
A few observations. One, there is a greater good present. And as much as it pained me to have St. Peter's beat Kentucky, that's one of those moments that's yes. presented by the way we approach kind of a big tent. And I want to make sure that you understand there's a T on the end of the word tent.
Yes.
Approach. Now, that creates opportunity, that creates attention, it creates really this joy, whether it's Maryland, Baltimore County, Virginia, Bucknell, Kansas, we can go down the line. Something really special. There is something special about that. So for all of the criticisms, there is a really inherent value there. But there are vast differences and disparities across what's labeled as Division I. Are we able, across 350-plus universities, 32 conferences, to support a more effective structure, to be more nimble in our decision-making, while still maintaining some connection? That's a difficult question to answer. And then that leads into really the predicate for your question, and all of these changes and pressures and expectations and resources and TV and media that are different, that create the need for us to continually adapt. I mean, those realities are almost bookends to the middle of the conversation, and we have to be wise and judicious in that conversation to make sure we support opportunities broadly and at a high level.
But how does one corral the NIL world then, Commissioner? I mean,
there's a couple of realities there. First of all, I'm operating in a construction zone in my office. If you hear that noise in the background, somebody just decided to crank up the bandsaw.
Oh,
progress.
No problem.
Progress manifests itself in many different ways. You know,
are you expanding the SEC offices too? Is there expansion going on there too?
We're certainly reshaping live via radio what happens in the SEC offices. So just a beautiful moment, right, for you and me.
No problem.
So let's back up. What do we do about NIL? Well, first of all, we predicted much of the concerns that are being introduced now. So some of these things, are they beyond our imagination? Some aren't surprises. So one, we've talked publicly about if we want a national standard for doing just what I described a moment ago, which is supporting these championships, these opportunities broadly, we need a national standard around name, image, and likeness. Our student athletes are asking us for that. I don't know if others are, but the confusion, the lack of clarity is important. If that doesn't happen, and trying to have Congress act on something is a challenge, then I think we'll be back in our state conversation within what will soon be a 12-state footprint to ask of our legislative leaders, can you give us a common template in our region that would be a leadership position for others? And that will allow us the opportunity to support what's special across the SEC. We would hope others would follow. What I think is difficult is we don't have any consumer protection. We don't have any oversight. We don't have any transparency right now. And if we dig into what's happening, people really have no idea beyond media reports and anonymous sources about what's happening in these agreements. And I'm concerned for our young people that many of them, in exchange for $50,000 or $100,000, are signing something they don't understand that has much longer implications than just their collegiate career.
And then I guess at the granular level, you got two of your more high-profile coaches saying things about one another a few weeks ago. Did you call Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban after that happened and have a commissioner to coach chat in any way, shape, or form? Greg Sankey?
We did have phone calls. We had a chat. I did a lot of listening on one of those calls. One, I did a lot of stating that we're not going to do that. And that is, we're not going to do things that way. And what I said to our coaches when we were together, which was really an incredibly valuable meeting, I said, look, here's the deal. This is never going to be the way that it was. This college football, college athletics is changing. I mean, you can make a list of things. In fact, you just did. But it doesn't have to be the way that it is. And what's not going to solve the problem is accusations, finger pointing, and complaining. What will help contribute to a solution is the people on the front lines, our head coaches in football, basketball, whatever sport, our athletics directors, our presidents and chancellors, thinking deeply about meaningful solutions, not simple solutions, meaningful solutions. And Rich, from that conversation, our football coaches were great, talking about what's really happening, helping us think through what they would need. We then went to a leadership council of student athletes and asked them about their concerns and their realities, what's the good and bad of name, image, and likeness. And those are the kind of conversations we need, not this finger pointing.
You could have the Aflac duck kind of mediate that conversation. What do you think between you and one of your coaches? What do you think?
Okay, that's one I hadn't considered.
I'm just trying to help. Greg Sankey. I'm just trying to help.
I'm looking for solutions, so I'll take whatever.
Well, yeah, I don't know how helpful that is, but I'm trying to help. Greg Sankey.
There's a great Ogden Nash poem about the duck, so that could serve as the basis for the introductory phase of the meeting.
That. Greg Sankey here on the Rich Eisen Show. A few minutes left with the SEC commissioner. So moments ago, you had mentioned the Big Tent. And how, and you pointed out in the world of college basketball and the men's NCAA tournament, some upsets and how we as sports fans love it, despite, unfortunately for you pointed out one of your member schools is on the business wrong end of that. We don't really see that in the world of college football because it's just 4 teams playing in the college football playoffs. I mean, I would love to see maybe a 16 seed knock off a 1 in college football. Do you think we'll see that, Commissioner?
I was on a group that looked at a variety of scenarios, including 16 teams, and settled on 12. You'll recall that was advanced for conversation, and there was a pretty small group of leaders who said no. And so here we are with 4. Whether we're able to re-engage, given current circumstances, remains to be seen. But I was excited to introduce a 12-team playoff. And I think if you actually look through the bracket idea that was presented by that subcommittee, the matchups created in the first round of that playoff, the second round, all the way through to the national championship, it would be really exciting. It would provide some opportunities for upsets, a lot of opportunities for young people to access national championship competition. And so that one's really my focus, whether somebody wants to go bigger and better. You know, I have coaches who've opined about that. But I think there's something still around that 12-team playoff that we ought to be talking about for our future.
Have any of those schools that balked at your 12-team proposal since knocked back on your door saying, how about that one? Can we put that back on the table? Has that happened?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting during media days where all of a sudden everybody thought expanding the playoff was a great idea. And I shared in the aftermath of those public comments that, hey, it's one thing to stand behind a microphone and make those remarks. What we've learned is in a meeting room, when it's time to cast a vote, that's when it matters. So that I think the answer to your question remains to be seen when we actually do gather up later this fall.
I mean, things are just changing so fast, Commissioner. Again, I'm sitting here in Los Angeles. We could call that Big Ten country now, which I never thought I would ever say about the Big Ten. So let's remove the T from that Big Tent conversation you mentioned before. That's another piece of news that happened today, is the Big Ten announcing their new media partnership and the number of windows and different partners that are now associated. I'd just love to place that in front of you if you care to comment on what you thought of the Big Ten's media strategy, Commissioner Sankey.
Sure. You know, congratulations to our colleagues. I know there's a lot of work that goes into that. They certainly had an opportunity around the termination of all of their media agreements. I actually think that we're incredibly well positioned. And I know, for example, the number of eyeballs in Los Angeles and Southern California that tune into our games. And our future will transition from involving CBS to actually having more broadcast TV opportunities through ABC than we've ever had over the last 2.5 decades. In addition, the sophistication of ESPN's digital delivery will be a great asset for us, along with what we do in the SEC network. So I'm excited about our future, congratulate our colleagues, and gives us the opportunity to roll up our sleeves and get back to work to make sure our future, including our financial opportunities, are second to none.
Big Ten also, in announcing those deals, Commissioner Sankey said they're not done expanding. What about the SEC in football?
You know, I tried to really be responsible, and I think I was at our media days, to say when we moved a year ago with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas, it was done for because it's the right kind of fit. They approached us philosophically aligned, culturally aligned with how we support athletics, our campuses, our region. And we're going to be very attentive to what others do. What I've not done is what I've seen others engage in, which is public speculation or commitments to continuing to expand. We've had any number of incoming phone calls, so those have continued through this week, actually. And so we're mindful of what's happening. We're really proud of how we've positioned ourselves. And if the right opportunities were presented, we'd certainly have a meaningful conversation. But I'm not recruiting. There's a lot to do with onboarding the 2 great universities to our 14 great members now. And that's really our focus, not expansion. And I think we all have a duty to act and communicate responsibly, given the discomfort, I think the tension, the disruption, the uncertainty that exists. And so for me to be clear, we're not in the expansion mode right now, but we're going to be prepared if circumstances dictate that we have to change our position.
So that construction we overheard, that's not building that phone bank to receive all the calls that you're getting from people who want in?
You need to come down to the office. I'll give you a tour, and you can see exactly what it is.
In.
But no,
absolutely.
We expanded our conference room last summer. We can fit like 28 people around the table, but that's not. We're not shooting for a number. Again, when we look back at Oklahoma and Texas, the alignment around support of high-level college athletics, the great universities, and the geography fits for us. And that makes us both national and really internationally interesting to people. So we're excited about that future.
All right, last thing for you, Greg Sankey. I'll ask the question to you that I think a lot of people are wondering, that if we do move to, or the college football world moves to a larger conference, and you just get a whole bunch of teams in a hat, and if the school presidents do finally decide to do something that you say you're not really for anyway, but would you be up for, or at least if the NCAA needs to be reformed, running the whole enchilada? Would you be up for that? I know you're laughing, but somebody's got to do it. I mean, somebody's got to figure out this Rubik's Cube, and you are in a position, I think, to do that personally. But I'll just throw that out there and see would that interest you, Greg Sankey?
I appreciate really the compliment embedded in the question, but also embedded in the question is a big little word, and that big little word is if. So a lot of ifs in there. I am proud to have the role I have. To be commissioner of the Southeastern Conference for a kid born in Auburn, New York, and raised in that central New York area. To be in this position is a surprise in some ways. It's an honor, and it's a great responsibility. And that's where I focus. You know, in a way, Rich, I feel like I'm one of those coaches up at the microphone saying, no, nobody's called. I don't have any interest. But the reality is the scope and scale of what we do, that's my focus. And I think Mark Emmert has had an impossible job. And I like jobs filled with possibilities, not impossibilities.
Greg Sankey, greatly appreciate the time. I always enjoy our chats. I'd love to do them more frequently if you are up for doing it. I look forward to the season and beyond. Thanks for the time.
I look forward to our next one.
Thank you.
It'll be here soon, so look forward to the fall.
In the Rich Eisen wing that's currently being built at the Southeastern Conference.
We'll go put the nameplate on right
Thank
now.
you, sir. Greatly appreciate it. Oh, please, it'll be sponsored. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's just fun. Thanks for the time.
Take care.
Greg Sankey, the Southeastern Conference Commissioner, right here on the Rich Eisen Show.